Beneath the Earth's surface, an ancient and colossal secret society of godlike beings exists. The only thing preventing them from rising and destroying human civilization is a ritual that requires regular human sacrifices. It is revealed that secret laboratories around the world facilitate this process, capturing and sacrificing young people every month to appease these deities. In one such facility, engineer Steve complains to his colleague Gary about his marriage. As they prepare to return to their workstations, the lab's chief chemist, Lynn, approaches them anxiously. She informs them that a similar lab in Stockholm has failed its mission, meaning their facility, along with the one in Japan, must complete the human sacrifice quota. Shocked, the two reassure Lynn, though they privately doubt their success. Meanwhile, on a nearby university campus, Dana packs for an upcoming weekend trip. She is soon joined by her close friends Jules and her boyfriend, Kurt. The trio loads their bags into a camper van. A short time later, their other friends, stoner Marty and transfer student Holden, join them. Unaware that they are the next intended sacrifices, the group sets off toward a remote cabin owned by Kurt's cousin. On their way, they unknowingly pass through an invisible one-way force field while driving through a mountain tunnel. Upon arriving at the cabin, they begin settling in. Holden is disturbed by a grotesque painting depicting a skinned horse. When he removes it, he discovers a one-way mirror behind it, through which he can see Dana undressing in the next room. Shocked, he immediately alerts the group and offers to switch rooms. Dana laughs and says, "It's fine if you want to watch me." Meanwhile, Steve and Gary monitor the group via hidden cameras inside the cabin. They finalize the preparations for the ritual. Unaware of their fate, the friends begin drinking, playing music, and starting a game of truth or dare. When it's Dana's turn, she picks dare, prompting a hidden basement door to suddenly burst open. The group is startled, but Jules dares Dana to explore it. Dana cautiously descends with a flashlight and discovers a collection of eerie artifacts left behind by the cabin's previous owners. The rest of the group soon joins her, curiously inspecting the strange objects. Dana finds an old diary belonging to Anna Patience Buckner, a member of a sadistic family from 1903. As Dana reads the last passage aloud, the Buckner family's corpses mysteriously rise from their graves nearby. As the night progresses, Marty, intoxicated from heavy marijuana use, begins suspecting that something strange is happening. He notices that Jules is behaving oddly, despite being an intelligent sociology student on an academic scholarship. He theorizes that unseen puppet masters might be controlling them. Dana dismisses his concerns. Meanwhile, Jules and Kurt sneak off into the forest for some private time, unaware that they are being watched. The engineers in the lab manipulate the environment, releasing pheromone fog to heighten their attraction and illuminating a romantic setting. Everyone in the control room watches as the couple begins making love on the forest floor. However, their moment is violently interrupted when the Buckner zombies arrive. One of them stabs Jules in the hand with a dagger. Terrified, Kurt fights back despite also being wounded. As the struggle intensifies, Jules tries to escape, but another zombie drags her to the ground. Kurt, helplessly watching, screams in horror as the creatures decapitate Jules with a saw. Desperate to save her, he shouts, "I'll save you, but where's my hammer?" Moments later, the engineers perform a brief prayer before activating the underground mechanism. Lul's blood drains into an underground pipe, eventually leading to a stone tomb. Meanwhile, in the cabin, Marty lights another joint, trying to distract himself from the voices he hears, but it doesn't work. He also decides to go outside to urinate, but a blood-covered wolf suddenly appears and drags him inside. Kurt informs the group that Lulz is gone and that they must lock all doors and windows. Shocked, Dana protests and opens the door for her friend, but this turns out to be a terrible decision, because John Buchner's zombie is standing on the porch, and he throws Lul's severed head inside. As Dana screams in terror, Kurt and the others somehow manage to lock the door. Kurt then tells them they must stay together no matter what. However, someone in the lab disagrees. "That's not how we do things," he says, pressing a button that releases gas through the cabin's ventilation system, impairing the group's cognitive abilities. Kurt unknowingly inhales the gas and suddenly changes his mind. He suggests that they split up to cover more ground. Shortly after, a zombie breaks through the front door, forcing the group to hide in their separate rooms. The engineers press another button, locking all the bedroom doors. Meanwhile, as Marty closes a window, he accidentally knocks over a lamp. When he looks at the broken lamp, he notices a small hidden camera inside. Shocked, Marty pulls at a long wire hidden in the walls of his room, confirming his suspicions someone is watching them. Unfortunately, before he can warn the others, tragedy strikes. The window behind him shatters, and John Buchner's corpse drags him outside. Marty grits his teeth and fights for his life, hitting the zombie with his thermos and managing to create some distance. However, the corpse throws a dagger, stabbing him in the back. The poor stoner collapses to the ground, screaming for help, but his desperate cries go unheard as the corpse drags him to a nearby grave. As before, the engineers open the pipeline, and blood drains into the underground stone tomb. With the earth trembling, the gods accept their second sacrifice. Meanwhile, Dana is trapped in her room, panicked. As a dead body approaches her window, her fears escalate. Luckily, Holden rescues her by breaking the mirror between their rooms and pulling her to his side. The two immediately begin barricading the windows. During this time, they discover another trapdoor in the floor. Realizing there is no other way out, they both escape through it. As they descend, Dana makes a horrifying discovery: they have entered the torture room from the journal. While searching for an exit, a corpse is suddenly pulled toward them through the trapdoor. As it rises, Dana attacks it with an iron rod, stopping its advance, then grabs a nearby knife and furiously stabs it multiple times. At that very moment, a door opens on the wall of the torture room. Expecting more zombies, Keely is met with a pleasant surprise. The wolf enters through the door and quickly gets them out of the torture chamber. Once outside, they jump into the camper, with the wolf taking the wheel, and they finally begin their escape from this hellhole. The scene suddenly shifts, revealing that Japan has failed to offer a sacrifice to the gods. Now, Steven and Garni must fulfill the human sacrifice quota at all costs. The duo panics upon realizing that the van is heading toward the mountain tunnel. Jerry suddenly remembers that the road is still open and realizes his mistake. The demolition team had failed to trigger the explosion due to a technical issue. So, he rushes to the explosives department and fixes the electronic problem himself. Jerry finally initiates the operation, and soon, an explosion occurs at the top of the tunnel. Massive rocks begin to collapse into the tunnel, forcing the surviving group to quickly reverse their van. Now, they are trapped inside the tunnel, their only way out of the forest. However, they notice a gap ahead, and the wolf comes up with a plan. He decides to use the motorcycle attached to the back of the van to jump across the gap and then run to the nearest town for help. He backs up and speeds toward the gap. For a moment, it seems like he will make it safely across, but unfortunately, he crashes into an invisible energy field. The wolf dies instantly, his broken motorcycle tumbling into a deep trench. His two remaining friends scream in horror and quickly run back to their camper. Dana then realizes that Marty had been right all along. Someone has been watching and controlling their every move. They realize that unless they uncover the truth, they will never escape. Unfortunately, a corpse enters the camper and slashes Holden's throat, killing him. Terrified, Dana screams as the camper spirals out of control and plunges into a nearby lake. As the vehicle submerges, the zombie tries to grab Dana's leg, but she desperately kicks it away and somehow swims to the surface. Meanwhile, back in the lab, all the employees cheer loudly. It turns out that 4 sacrifices are enough to appease the gods. This means that Dana's death is not mandatory. Whether she lives or dies doesn't matter. What matters is that she must experience pain inflicted by the monsters. Meanwhile, Dana crawls to the edge of the lake and realizes that all her friends are dead. But her struggle isn't over yet, because the zombie that attacked her in the van emerges from the lake and starts walking toward her. Exhausted, she lies on her back as the zombie begins to strangle her. On the other side, Gary approaches the demolition team and jokes about how they almost failed their mission. However, the team reveals that they never received the order due to a power outage in the system. It's clear that someone has tampered with the wiring in the killing zone. Suddenly, the phone in the control room rings, and Steve picks it up. The lab director delivers bad news on the other end. Apparently, aside from Dana, another student is still alive, meaning the ritual is not yet complete. At that moment, just as Dana is about to be killed, the zombie suddenly collapses behind her. The reason? Marty has miraculously survived. The two immediately run, and Marty leads her into one of the graves. To Dana's astonishment, the grave turns out to be a massive tunnel. Nearby, they also spot the dismembered remains of a zombie corpse. It turns out Marty managed to kill the creature that had dragged him into this grave. He also caused the power outage that the demolition team had mentioned. Marty shows Dana an elevator beneath the grave. Now, the young survivors realize that the zombies chasing them were sent by someone. If they want to escape, the only way is to go down. So, they jump into the elevator, taking the severed zombie arm with them. A few minutes later, the elevator takes them to a vast network of dungeons. The two friends encounter various monsters trapped in glass cages. Upon seeing them, Dana realizes a horrifying truth. The people behind this have manipulated them into choosing which type of monster to face. She had unknowingly selected the zombies, leading to her friends' deaths. At least she hadn't accidentally chosen the leprechauns. Meanwhile, in the control room, Gary orders a security officer to the elevator, intending to eliminate Marty and complete the ritual. Soon, the elevator doors open, and the security officer comes face to face with the two survivors. Fortunately, the zombie arm grabs the officer's legs, distracting him long enough for the duo to take advantage, kill him, and seize his gun and a nearby dagger. They flee the scene and rush into a hallway filled with numerous doors. Suddenly, a woman's voice comes over the speaker system, urging them to surrender and accept their fate as sacrifices. However, the survivors hide in an operator's room, just as a group of security guards starts firing at them. Dana notices a control panel nearby and slams the large red button. This action unlocks all the hallway doors, unleashing an army of monsters. The entire security team is instantly overwhelmed by the freed demons, which then spread throughout the laboratory. Elsewhere, Gary, Steve, and Lynn barricade themselves in the main control room. With defenses disabled and no escape route, they are trapped. Meanwhile, Dana and Marty leave the operator's room and escape through a vent in the hallway. Back in the control room, monsters manage to break through the steel door. Steve does his best to hold them off with a machine gun, but Gary enters the escape hatch code. Unfortunately, an explosion rips through the control room, sending Steve flying. A monstrous, whale-like creature approaches him and devours him alive. Luckily, Gary manages to open the escape hatch just in time and flees the control room. As he runs down a dark corridor, he doesn't get far before encountering Dana. Without hesitation, Dana plunges the dagger into his chest. Afterward, Marty hands her the gun, and they continue deeper into the tunnel. The two find themselves in a chamber surrounded by 5 stone graves. At that moment, the lab director reveals herself and finally tells them the truth. If the ritual isn't completed, the ancient gods that rule the world will awaken and bring chaos. She tells Dana that the sun will rise in 8 minutes, and if she wants to save humanity, she must kill Marty. Shaken by this revelation, Dana points the gun at her friend. Marty stares at her in shock, unable to comprehend what she will do. But before Dana can pull the trigger, a werewolf leaps from the shadows and bites her on the neck. Dana cries out in pain and collapses. As the director and Marty struggle over the gun, Marty gains control and fires several shots at the werewolf, forcing it to retreat while Dana barely survives. Marty then turns his attention to the director and pushes her into the raging depths below. Unfortunately, all their heroics mean nothing because the ritual has failed. The two friends sit down to share one last cigarette. The film ends as a massive hand rises from the depths, destroying the laboratory.